It's better to read the best books over and over than it is to read every single book. And today I want to share with you my top 5 books that have changed my life. Hi, my name is Bryce Elbert. I am a health optimization coach. I work with some of the best Madden players in the world. I help them optimize their health and their life. And I've read a significant amount of books at this point, about 100. I know there's people who've read tons and tons more books than I have. However, for me, over these last several years, I've put a huge emphasis on educating myself and really trying to make a big change in terms of how I live and just operate in my life. And these 5 books that I'm going to share with you have really made a significant impact on really how I live day to day. How I picked these was really based on the fact of how much of a change they had actually made for me. Of course, there's a lot of really good books that I've read. They just didn't quite make this cut because of the fact that I didn't continuously maybe use the principles inside of them, or maybe they only had little segments of just really high quality information. The first book that I want to mention here is I Hear You by Michael Sorensen. This book really caught me off guard by how good this book actually was and how simple it was to read. It took me really just one sitting to actually read this book, maybe a couple hours at the most. The book is really generously spaced. There's not a lot of filler. There's a lot of books out there that just do hundreds and hundreds of pages of just, extra stuff that doesn't really need to be there. This book is straight to the point. And really what it teaches you is that human beings are really looking to be validated when they're speaking. And this book lays out a lot of simple principles and how the author actually discovered this himself on what people are really looking for when they're speaking. I think a lot of people will go through life and they don't really ever feel satisfied when they're speaking to others. And the same goes just when you're speaking to other people. A lot of them might not be satisfied what you're saying, even though you're really trying to listen. A lot of the time, really what they want you to do is validate their emotions. And it's really easy for us to come in and maybe give advice or maybe share our own stories. And of course, those things can be good and helpful. However, a lot of the time, people are really just looking to just feel heard. And that's something that it seems really obvious, but so many people don't do this. I know with myself, I've struggled with just maybe speaking too much or not leaving other people feeling like they're getting a good bit in the conversation. And ever since I read this book and started applying it, I've actually had people give me a compliment such as being like an amazing listener, which is really a first for me. And that's something that's really made a big change in just my overall life. And it's a book that I've read it twice, and I would probably continue to read it a few more times to really integrate this into my life. The next book that I have here is Presenting to Win. It's by Jerry Westman. Jerry Westman was really big with helping CEOs make their speeches to raise capital for companies. And really, he assisted so many of the largest companies that you could probably think of in terms of building their speech and helping them raise initial capital that really helped them become the large companies they are today. The reason that I put this book in here is because this is literally probably the best book that I can think of on how to construct a high quality speech. A lot of us are going to go through a lot of points in life where we're going to have to present something at some point. And it's really difficult. And even with myself, I have a lot of Toastmaster experience and just a lot of public speaking experience in general, and I still have not perfected this. This book has made a significant difference in my overall progress in learning how to become an effective communicator and really making something that's interesting and engaging. This book, honestly, I think should be mandatory for people who want to do Toastmasters or are actually in Toastmasters. There was stuff in this book that I would use and share with people who had been in Toastmasters for 30, 40 years, and they had never heard these types of concepts or these types of models on how to construct their speeches. It really made a huge difference in my overall progress in Toastmasters. And you can see my little Toastmaster award up there too. I didn't quite get to DTM, but I was in Toastmasters for 2 years, and I was actually in 2 clubs. There's so many things that I helped other speakers with in terms of how they corrected and changed their speaking and just making their speeches much more engaging and really much more entertaining to listen to. And it really all came from this book. If you want to do any sort of public speaking, or you want to even just prepare, maybe there's only one speech you need to do, highly recommend reading this book. And you don't have to actually read this book from cover to cover. I did, and I've actually went back through on the sections. I highly recommend just using the table of contents and going to the area that you want to work on and just reading it from there and actually selecting the things that you want to work on. However, if you do read the entire book, yeah, there's going to be a lot of good substance there that you'll get out of it. The next book that I want to share here is The Toxin Solution by Joseph Pizzorno. This book is probably the #1 health book that I have ever read. I've actually read this book multiple times. I've done the detox protocol in it. Now, there is a lot of really good, high-quality health books out there. The reason that I specifically chose that book was because of the fact that the material is really actionable and it can be really life-changing to someone who's really trying to work on and improve their health. I think that there is so many things in the world that people are unaware of that are really toxic to their health in terms of like cosmetics and toxins that are getting into their water and even just like household chemicals. This book really informs you on a lot of those things. And then it also introduces a protocol to help you detox, which you can use yearly, that I think is super powerful. I've done the detox myself, and I find myself going back to it yearly. I think that this book probably has one of the highest potential out of all the health books to really make one of the biggest changes for people, especially because of the fact that, maybe for a brief time they can do the detox protocol. However, it's really easy to make changes with the products that you use daily and just how you get things such as your water. I know for myself that it has had just an enormous impact on my life, and I think it's a book that I'll continue to go back on every year. The next book here is The Sedona Method by Hale Doskin. This book is incredibly transformative. So many people in their life are really just run by their emotions. Humans are very emotional creatures. We're never really taught how to control our emotions. Maybe a lot of people might want us to suppress our emotions. But this book introduces a really simple process on how you can release emotions. And when I was reading this book, I specifically was at this lake. I would go there and I would sit on the bench and I would read this book, and it took quite a while to really do this because there's a lot of practices in the book. It's not one of those books where you just read over it and that's it. There's actually a lot of practices, and really to get all the results out of really any book, you want to do all the practices. I think this book probably took me a couple months to get through. I would go to the park. I would be sitting there trying to do these release techniques. One day while I was doing it, I had sold something on Macari is what it's called, and I got this negative review, and I was sitting there, I just had been doing the process. And of course, the biggest thing that you want to do is get defensive because the person had made a comment on my packing, and how they made it sound was like I didn't actually package the item at all. And I was able to, just in that moment, I was like, okay, I just read the book. I'm going to release all of this built up, wanting to argue, wanting to do all this stuff. And I just simply reached out to them in a message, and I apologized. I said how I want to correct this action, and I just said, hey, how you worded the comment, it did make it sound like I didn't actually pack the item at all. And I explained that, it was a bit more expensive material I used. There was a specific reason why I packed it that way. And I was asking, could you maybe just change the wording if you're not willing to change the rating? And they actually went ahead and they turned it into a 5-star rating. And they forgave me for how I shipped the item. And I've had a lot of experiences just using this protocol in order to help myself just get rid of emotions. And it's important to do this with a full range of emotions, like even at the highest, joy emotion of getting used to just releasing that emotion. This book is really key in doing that, and it'll blow you away at how life-changing this can really be. The last book that I want to share here is Walt Disney by Neil Gabler, and this is a huge biography, about 800 pages. There was several other biographies that I could have mentioned, but I specifically did Walt Disney because this book really changed my outlook on just what is really possible in life and really overcoming the struggles. I think a lot of us these days don't really have to go through a lot of the things that people did even just 100 years ago in order to be successful. Walt Disney went through so many things. He suffered bankruptcy. He was even eating out of a garbage at one point in order to sustain himself, in order to create the animation work that he really wanted to do. This book is incredibly inspiring. And not only that, it's entertaining to read. I found myself being really excited to actually travel to California, go to Disneyland, experience the firefighter station where Walt Disney would actually sit and watch the fireworks and really experience what it took for him to create this just massive vision and build this huge company that's had such an impact on the world. And really, I think so many people grew up watching some form of a Disney cartoon and just the impact that it's had really on the world. I think that being inspired by biographies is something really massive to include into your books. And these are my top 5 books that have transformed my life. I'd love to hear some of your favorite books down below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.